22nd Century Group is a next-generation plant biotechnology company focused on tobacco harm reduction, reduced nicotine tobacco, and also improving plants to enhance human health. And with me is Jim Mish, the CEO, to talk about the company. So I gave a little overview. I guess let's just start with kind of the big picture. What is 22nd Century?
Yeah, and thanks so much for having us in. I mean, 22nd Century at its core is a health and wellness company that's driven by plant-based biotechnology, and we focus really on two areas, tobacco and hemp cannabis. So we're looking for harm reduction products in tobacco, help people smoke less, which is really our main theme with our cigarette on the market, VLN. And in hemp cannabis, we are full value proposition on ingredient supply, formulated products for the consumer products industry and the medical markets as well.
So, and you were talking about how the FDA is making some changes. There might be regulations on menthol cigarettes. How does that impact your business?
Yeah, we interact with the FDA on both business units, but on tobacco, they've got a what they call a universal plan. And it's really twofold. Number one, they are about to rule on menthol cigarettes and ban menthol cigarettes. And they're also looking to drive nicotine levels of regular cigarettes down to our levels. Our product, VLN, is FDA authorized with something called a Modified Risk Tobacco Product Authorization, an MRTP, that has a harm reduction access to it. So this low level of nicotine is just enough to kind of fool the mind into believing it's getting a full hit, and it starts to separate the individual from the addiction to nicotine, thus driving down the number of cigarettes they smoke and thus the harm reduction. So FDA is moving ahead on that on a federal basis, but also states are moving ahead with menthol bans and taking a look at reducing nicotine to these levels as well, because these clinical studies that the FDA ran on their own dime over years, they spent about $150 million to demonstrate that these low nicotine cigarettes actually do drive down the use, and that's the harm reduction.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. What has been the success rate with these types of lower nicotine cigarettes?
Yeah, so you got to go back through some of the clinical studies and then eventually pilot launches that we did, and now as we're rolling it out. And all the data is very consistent, that if an individual who smokes switches over to VLN, within a relatively short period of time, their smoking habit goes down sometimes 60–70%. That positions them often to go ahead and stop altogether, but at the very least they're reducing their habit dramatically. And the clinical studies have been so compelling that the FDA on this MRTP mandates that we have to put on every pack helps you smoke less. That's how compelling the clinical studies are. So it's a fantastic tool that the smoker has not had ever. You know, it's gone from regular cigarettes to patches and nicotine gums and vapes that just haven't worked. This is a fantastic new tool to offer to their repertoire to really give them a shot, at the very least, dropping down dramatically the number of cigarettes they smoke a day and positioning them for cessation.
Do you ever worry like an Altria might get into this space?
Yeah, they had looked at it and they had tried certain lower levels of nicotine, but that actually causes what they call compensatory smoking, causes you to smoke more. This company, 22nd Century, wrapped intellectual property around these plant genetics. So we gene edit the tobacco so it actually smokes like a cigarette, tastes like a cigarette. And we have a very large and deep IP moat around that intellectual property. Now, we're not trying to be a cigarette company, right? We're launching the product and we're rolling it out and expanding on a daily basis. Just this week, we've announced another distributor in the Midwest called Hub that further that's expansion. But we're not here to build a massive cigarette company. We would certainly partner with Big Tobacco in order to get this product into the hands of the consumers and drive down the harm. I mean, there's still 1,400 people a day in the U.S. dying from smoking-related illnesses. And we feel we can make a huge dent in that moving forward.
Now, you mentioned your genetic technology, so it's proprietary, I assume. You mentioned the intellectual property. How does that work? I mean, you genetically alter the tobacco, or?
Well, we use gene editing,
okay,
so which is different than genetically modified. It's there is some aspects of CRISPR associated with that. But we do it a bit differently, and that's how we can wrap intellectual property around it. So our tobacco is the only one who can reach these levels of 0.5 milligrams of nicotine per gram of tobacco. And that's a very special level. That's where you do not get compensatory smoking in the cigarette itself. Anything above that, you get compensatory smoking. So it's a very important level, and that's very strong intellectual property around that then.
What's the mission of the company?
We want to sell the last combustible cigarette in the United States and in the world and drive harm reduction in health and wellness. Again, 1,400 people a day are dying from smoking-related issues. And our mission is to make that and make an impact and make that zero. So ultimately, we want to sell the last cigarette in the world.
Yeah. And where can people buy these?
So the president of our division, tobacco division, is doing a great job of expansion. So now we're in the top 4 distributors in the United States. We're also in the top 2 convenience stores, 7-Eleven and Circle K. Now we're rolling out state by state. Right now we're just entered our 8th state. But in states like California, Texas, Florida, huge smoking states, the 4 corner states, Illinois, those are the states right now you can go to, not only 7-Eleven and Circle K, but other convenience stores as well. You can also go onto our website, tryvln.com, and pinpoint exactly the store in your area. Over time, over the next quarter or 2, we'll be in roughly 18 states by the end of the year, and roughly 10,000 stores in that expansion. So, but people can seek it out on tryvln.com.
They can go. And international or just U.S. for now?
No, so the U.S. market is it's an $80 billion market in the combustible cigarettes alone. That's an $800 billion market globally. So we've strategically targeted a few countries, Japan, South Korea, Switzerland, to do some pilot studies in. Labeling requirements are very intense over there, so we're going through that process right now. But everywhere we have planted the flag, everywhere where this product becomes available and people become aware of it and understand just the basics of how it works, they seek it out and it works. And it's not it's not measured in years; it's measured in a few months where they see the impact.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you so
Fascinating to hear
much.
about it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.